So how does our will fit in with all this? Earlier this week, we explained that the will is what makes us a person and not a thing. The ability to choose to say yes or no is in our freedom and creativity. They're all ways in which we express our will. They're the core of who we are, our heart, as it would have been talked about biblically. And we explored yesterday how our kingdom, if you like, is the range of our effective will, where our choices and decisions have sway. However, sometimes our will is just not that effective. Our wills can be really good at making big decisions about committing to things, but they aren't so good when it comes to overriding the ingrained attitudes of our minds and habits of our bodies. Some people may be said to be strong-willed, but our wills are generally very limited, which is why we sometimes eat cake and scones even when we're on a diet, and why sometimes people even have two scones, as I did yesterday morning at a coffee morning. The limitations of the will are why we so often fail at our New Year's resolutions. Our will makes a decision that we need to eat healthier and do more exercise, but it can be hard to override those habits in our bodies, especially when there's all those Christmas leftovers still in the house. When I first shared the focus for this course on Facebook, someone commented, "If only it was that easy." But it isn't easy. It's not easy to make lasting and meaningful change. And if we try to improve ourselves, to grow our resilience tank by sheer willpower, we will exhaust not only ourselves, but probably everyone else we know. Whilst our will might make the decision to make a change, it rarely, if ever, will have the strength to see through that change. As we looked at back in day 5 of week 1, if we're going to be motivated to stick with the program for any lasting change, we need a clear reason why we're doing it, something that will keep us on track, something that we can keep in front of us, something that inspires us to stick with the difficult process of changing attitudes and habits. In day 5 of week 1, I spoke about my deepest longings, the things that were behind the hopes I have for the future. I said that I was longing for things like happiness and peace and belonging and justice and freedom and joy, and to be fully known and to be loved, to be more at peace in myself, to more easily let go of my worries and anxieties, to be more joyful, to be confident, to laugh more. In short, I said I wanted an all-round sense of well-being in my life. I also said that I didn't long for those things just for myself, because we can't be truly happy when we know some other people are suffering. So as I long for those same things for everyone. So I identified my deepest longing is for that holistic sense of well-being. However, we live in an imperfect world, a world which will keep on piling on the stresses and trying to rob me of that joy. So if I want the quality of life that I've just shared with you, I need to work on growing my resilience tank. I need to invest in developing my well-being in each of the different dimensions. The only way that I will stick with a choice to make a change in my life is if I have clear and meaningful goals that will motivate me to keep going, goals that I can come back to again and again. Secondly, that I have a plan for getting there and a process or people that will hold me accountable to that plan. And thirdly, that I make the choices are an act of the will, the choice to work at that plan. James March is a professor at Stanford University, and he says that when people make choices, they tend to rely on one of two basic models for decision making. Firstly, the consequences model. When we have a decision to make, we weigh the costs and benefits of our options, and we make the choice that maximizes our satisfaction. And secondly, the identity model. When we have a decision to make, we ask ourselves 3 questions. Who am I? What kind of situation is this? And what would someone like me do in this situation? Looking back, I realised that this is how my father eventually made the changes that helped him to stop smoking. Everyone knows, including those that smoking kills. But knowing that doesn't change many smokers' behaviour. My father had tried to give up many times, but finally made it work when he began to see himself as a non-smoker. If the consequences model for decision making is used, then having one more cigarette brings more immediate satisfaction for a smoker. However, when a person begins to see themselves as a non-smoker, when they see their identity differently, then if they use the identity model to make decisions, they can find it easier to give up. And this approach doesn't stop the cravings, but I'm told that it can make them easier to resist. The same is true for any changes that we want to make in our lives. John Burke writes, "The knowledge of right or wrong doesn't create lasting change in people. What changes people's behavior is knowledge of their identity, how they see themselves." So it doesn't help if we see ourselves as unfit, overweight, too busy to eat properly, too unqualified to attempt something, or more seriously, too addicted to give something up, or too set in our ways to change a destructive behavior. We need to see ourselves differently, to see our identity as it could be. One scholar has noted that a lot of Jesus' teaching seemed geared to confront and rearrange a person's thinking about their identity. Jesus summarized the most important things people should do as: love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus wasn't saying these things because God demands or needs our love, but because he knew that this was the way to an integrated life, the way to help bring a change in identity. He knew that when the heart, the will, is aligned with the soul and rooted in God, then it brings the mind and the body, the strength, and the relationships, our neighbours, into an integrated whole. And a person can know life to the full. That's why it's love the Lord your God with your heart and soul and mind and strength, and love your neighbour as yourself. Jesus saw past the hurts and problems and pain in people's lives and called out the identity that God intended from the beginning, an identity in which they are loved and precious and included in his kingdom and made in God's image. Even today, when people understand this, they begin to make choices based on that identity and grow into it. Jesus wasn't calling people to worship a needy God who demands unswerving loyalty. He was calling them to a way of living that would lead to an integrated life. I think that all the major religions are calling people to ways of living that can help provide a similar sort of integration. However, there are some important distinctions in Christianity, but that's a subject for another course that we run called Explore. For this course, don't try to make change by willpower alone. It is just not possible. Realize that we are working towards an integrated life with an holistic sense of well-being. And take time to think about and write down what this means for you, and use the 4 questions that have been repeated each week to help focus in on what you need to do. Who do I want to become in this next season of my life? What area of well-being do I want to develop? What do I need to do to grow in that area? Where can I fix a time for that in my diary? How can I keep focused on the reasons I am doing this? One last thing. Don't try to do everything at once. Remember that we tend to overestimate what we can do by trying and underestimate what we can do by training. We wouldn't go into the gym and try to work on all the muscle groups at the same time. We pick something to start with, something that's manageable, and then work up. We're going into training to improve our well-being, so pick something to work on. Keep your goals in front of you. Be accountable to someone who will ask you how you are doing, and put your plan into action. As we come to the end of this course, my prayer for all of you is that as you do this, you would find yourself slowly growing in that holistic sense of well-being, that you would be more at peace in yourself, more easily let go of your worries and anxieties, be more joyful and confident, and that you would laugh more, that your relationships would be full of the same, and that you would find yourself living an integrated life. A life where will, mind, body, relationships and soul are all aligned. A life where you accept yourself and know that you are loved and precious just as you are. Where you find that you have life in all its fullness. God bless you.